This is the CNC Geekcast, the podcast where two guys with speech impediments talk about movies. I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
On today's episode, we'll be talking about The Isle of Dogs, the new Wes Anderson movie. We're going to be talking about the characters, the dog characters, the animation, the plot, and much more. So stay tuned!
I will admit, I really enjoyed this film. Frankly, I was delighted by this film. From the opening frame till the end of the movie, I was purely captivated. But frankly, I'm also a little bit biased. I don't think there was ever a chance of me not liking this film.
Okay, well, at least you're honest about it.
I mean, just frankly, I love Wes Anderson. If you've listened to our Kubo episode, you know I'm also a lover of stop-motion animation. Also love dogs. I have two dogs who are both great, and I want to pet all the dogs.
Pet all the dogs. Now, me being a cat person, I like dogs too, but me being a cat person, the cats in this film don't have a positive light. I get that, I understand. Cats are cats, but I still love the cats. All the cats, but not all of them. There was one, specifically one, and we both know which one we're talking about. But I really do like this film too. It's a really good film. I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the cinematography. I enjoyed the animation, the choices they used when it comes to the animations, what they chose to show on screen, and what they chose not to, how they did it. And the story itself, I just loved all of it. It was such a well-told story.
It was. I know the film's still in theaters. In fact, it just opened probably 2 weeks ago by the time this episode comes out. So a lot of people may not have got a chance to see it yet. If you haven't got a chance to see it, get out there and watch it. If you're a dog lover, which you should be.
If you are, you're going to love this film. It's really good. Now, what really surprised me about this film is we just got out of the movie theater, and it being an animated film, we, of course, went in with the preconception that it was a children's movie, or at least a family movie. But then we started seeing a lot of blood in the film, and one character's head got decapitated. I'm like, this can't be a child's film. If it is, this is really strong. And we checked the rating. Oh, it's PG-13.
Actually, I did kind of like that. It was more aimed at adults. Like, maybe older kids won't have an issue with it, but maybe kids that are too young, it's maybe not a film intended for them.
You mean like PG-13?
Exactly, like PG-13.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about even like maybe preteens, just because there's a choice made in this movie, and it seems odd on the surface. And I was skeptical of it, but I still enjoyed it. Sometimes when Japanese character talks, it's not narrated, there's no subtitles, there's no nothing. So it's only kind of translated by other characters, which I feel is an interesting choice, but it may shun some younger kids because they're going to be like, what was that character saying? And the parents will have to explain it to them, and because they may not be as quick on the uptake.
Yeah. No, I do enjoy how this film structured itself. It was, of course, with the four-act structure, four-act story, but it presented itself as a book. Like Chapter 1, the search for so-and-so, or Chapter 2, the journey to this place, or Chapter 4, the finding of so-and-so. And I really didn't like that. I also liked how, like you said, you had a lot of, it had a lot of, I won't say dialogue, but a lot of writing on it that was not only in English, but also Japanese. And you had the Japanese writing, and then you had the English translation on the bottom. Which I thought was an interesting choice, because I'm like, that's a really cool stylistic choice. Because I don't think this was released in Japan first. It was based in a fictional city of Japan.
Yeah, I think it was just kind of Wes Anderson's
style.
It was his love of the culture, I want to say, or his fascination with the culture. I'm not sure how Japanese people would feel about it, but truthfully, I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah, me too. I always enjoyed films that take place in foreign countries, because it's just nice to expand outward and explore the world.
Well, you do know this country doesn't exist, right?
Well, no, I know, but the culture does.
I know.
I know. But like I said, it's nice to be able to get out and visit different places.
Man, and you mentioned a little bit about the story. If anything, the story is one of the detriments of this film to me. Because I am a Wes Anderson lover, and I love stop motion. So, kind of know where I'm going with this. Fantastic Mr. Fox, released, I think it was 2009.
Wow.
Is still my favorite Wes Anderson film. It has this fantastic stop-motion animation that he honed. And in this movie, the stop-motion animation is even better than it is in Fantastic Mr. Fox. But Fantastic Mr. Fox has that personal story. You're just focused on the titular character. Whereas in this movie, it has a ensemble cast. It has a ton of famous people.
Yeah.
Headed by Bryan Cranston. It has Greta Gerwig. It has Bill Murray.
Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum.
This is really, really all you need.
Who's just being Jeff Goldblum again.
Yes. Oh,
I really wish I could just be Jeff Goldblum just because he just goes to a movie set and it's like, hey, just be Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, I give his performance 10 Goldblums out of 10 Goldblums.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just top-notch performance.
But that is one of the detriments of this film, because we're about to start talking about the plot. And as you listen to us, you will hear all the twists and turns it makes.
Yes.
It's not exactly a simple, easy-to-explain plot.
It's not, but it's not convoluted enough that it rails the movie down to the point where it's like, it's convoluted, like the third Pirates movie.
Yeah, but at the same time, it does take a detriment of it when you have this story that's trying to have heart. Mm-hmm. You do see Chief kind of growing and becoming more attached to Atari, even though he was this tough little street dog. And I think the fact that you don't get that sooner and that you have all these other elements kind of detract from that a bit. Okay. You don't have that personal story, that personal arc.
No, I get you, I understand. But the plot starts by basically there was a dog flu outbreak in the fictional city of Megasaki, and they decided to take all the dogs and put them on an island. And we learn later down the road that it was all a plot.
It was a conspiracy headed by the mayor and his family called the Kobayashis.
Kobayashis, yeah, Kobayashi Maru. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay, that sounds... Okay, well, that's a neat little connection. We also found out that in the beginning there's a plot about like these clans fighting. You had the dogs rising up and being overpopulated or something, and the cats come in, and the cat clan comes in, and then you have this boy samurai. And those prologues, sometimes there's so much information thrown at me, I get lost in a lot.
And that kind of happened a bit with this film, because in the prologue, it tells the story of the Kobayashi clan and the fact that they are more of a cat-focused clan, and they tried to rid Japan of dogs, but then a boy samurai helped defeat the Kobayashi clan, and dogs flourished.
And the same thing happened in this film, too, because you had the boy samurai came back.
Yeah,
in the figure of
Atari.
Atari, yeah. Which I love the games that Atari comes out with. Dun dun.
Get out.
Oh.
But you're a third through the film before Atari is even introduced.
This is true, yeah.
As I said a minute ago, that bothers me, but Atari only comes to Trash Island, or that's where the dogs are kept, because he's in the search for his bodyguard dog. The dog that he had developed this connection with. The dog that he shouldn't have even developed a connection with, because it's his bodyguard dog. He's supposed to be a professional dog. Not
this is true. But getting back to your point, Star Wars did the same thing. Mark Hamill, or Luke Skywalker didn't come into 1/3 of the film either in Star Wars. Remember that. It was just
It wasn't. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? So he is a Luke Skywalker in this kind of.
But it still worked, because after he came in, it was so clearly focused on Luke Skywalker and his personal journey.
Yeah.
Whereas this film does do a lot of flashbacks. Okay. And a lot of like flash sideways where you see other character stories. Because this whole time while this is going on, there's this other character in the city. She's a transfer student played by the fantastic Greta Gerwig, who is trying to like unravel this conspiracy. And then there's this whole subplot with the dog flu vaccine.
And then the hacker kid, who is just magnificent.
And then there's the hacker kid that you just see make random appearances.
And it gives you that face like, I don't know what that face is giving, but still.
I think it was pride. Like, hey, I'm here and I'm doing stuff.
And I know how to do this, and I know more than you. It seems like the plot was split between the boy, but the main characters were, of course, the dogs, and the street dog was the main character, so...
But it was a bit before you do get introduced to Chief as the main character, because when you're introduced on Trash Island, the dog that you're immediately introduced to, I can't remember the dog's name.
Sport or Spot?
No, that was Atari's dog.
Okay.
I'm talking about the one played by Ed Norton.
Okay, yeah.
That you see a couple times, and he and Chief kind of have this antagonistic relationship.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a bit before Chief even kind of comes out as the protagonist, as the character with the...
As the alpha dog.
Yeah.
Well, he was always the alpha dog, but like, yeah, I kind of like that, yeah. I see where you're going. Yeah, but at the same time, like I said, it felt like the dogs were taking the lead role, and Atari was kind of not the protagonist per se, but kind of like not MacGuffin.
No, he was a secondary character. You're
yeah, he definitely was a secondary character, so it wasn't the main. But what was your thoughts on all the other plots? The plot about her trying to find the backstory, or not backstory, but
I don't know. I don't feel like it needed to be there.
Okay.
I get what they were going for, like kind of unraveling this grand conspiracy, but I just don't know that it did it for me.
No? Okay, why do I say that?
Just because it kept detracting. I was much more invested in Atari and a search for sport. And then Chief growing. Anytime the scenes with Greta Gerwig's character were on, I was just waiting for them to get back to seeing Chief and seeing Atari.
No, it's kind of like Star Wars: The Last Jedi, was that the Kanda bait scene. It's like, okay, that's nice. Let's get back to Luke and Ray. Back to Luke and Ray.
I mean, it's not an awful scene in and of itself. It's just that
not as interesting.
Yeah, it's just not as interesting.
But I will enjoy. I do enjoy the journey. The journey that the characters went on. I enjoy the music choice.
Well, I especially enjoyed the journey because as you see the journey, they progress through. This island is big. It was kind of a manufacturing district that it got overran by a tsunami and a volcano. Both.
No, at the same time?
I don't know at the same time, but you saw how some of the areas were like flooded, and then others had that volcanic ash.
That would have been kind of bad. Where you have all these characters running from a volcano to the shoreline, and then here comes a tsunami at the same time, and they're like, "Oh, we're trapped." That was dark.
Yeah, you got really dark on that one. You did. But what I was saying was I really enjoyed all the environments built because each of them had their own visual look. They all had their own look and feel because there's this foundry that they go in that the colors completely shift. Yeah. And then you see them walk through the meadows and walk through a golf course. Yeah, and each of these have different color grading. They're intended to look like completely different places, but they look like completely different worlds.
They do look that way, and I do enjoy how simple the cinematography is in this one, and a lot of other films too. Because after watching Batman vs Superman and Justice League and not Justice League, but Suicide Squad, and then watching all these films that have shaky cams when it comes to action and lighting that's too dark, I'm like, it's really nice to sit back and just watch the scene unfold.
But it still had his distinct Wes Anderson. Have you ever watched any of his films?
You have to mention some.
If you've seen any of his films, he has that distinct visual style. Or if you noticed with a lot of this film, a lot of the shots are very symmetrical.
Yeah.
And then it will have the main character like on one side of the frame with the action happening behind it, kind of talking directly to the camera. A lot of his films kind of feel like the characters are aware they're in a movie.
And is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
I've always thought it was good just because the way his characters act. Because they seem like they know more.
Okay. So it gives that special feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. But I also enjoyed in this film, just like I said, some parts where you're just allowed to enjoy this scene. Because there's one scene where the chef was making sushi. And you basically sat there and saw the process to unfold in this animation form.
Frankly, that was really cool. But it was also cool because it was kind of a break. It was kind of an... Before and after, there's a scene of action, and it's a little more tense scene. And then you go to the chef making sushi, making a dinner. And it's frankly kind of relaxing.
It is.
But also, you're watching it a second. It takes a bit before it pays off.
Yeah.
But then it pays off. It pays off in a big way.
Yeah, because the chef was hired by the governor and the clan. Because at this point, you had the scientist that discovered the cure for the dog disease.
And then Kobayashi, Mayor Kobayashi, ordered it shredded.
Yeah, which was he didn't order it. He was right there in the hot tub, and while the scientist gave him the stuff, he just shredded it in front of the scientist.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I'm like. I'm like, this is why I think of your findings. Like, what are you doing? Like, I found that to be so. I mean, he didn't care.
Maniacal.
Exactly, maniacal. But I did love. There's one thing I loved about it is when the scientist ran for the science party. I found that a bit humorous from a political standpoint.
No, I did as well. But getting back to the sushi scene, this whole thing with the sushi chef, you see him making the dinner for the scientist. So you do it, and it's so relaxing. And then at the end, you're like, oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, they're poisoning him. Yeah. Because I think they did capture him, didn't they?
They had him in a secure location.
And then they took him out.
Yep.
They poisoned him. So, but another thing I liked about the film was when it comes to the animation was there's one part. Well, actually, the golf scene itself. The dog was talking, and I could see the backdrop of that scene. You could see, obviously, it's a piece of paper, but I could see the creases in the piece of paper. And I thought that this was really cool how the way they decided to keep that in there.
Well, I've always enjoyed that about stop motion animation because, frankly, it isn't as crisp as computer generated animation. It can't be because you have the human element. So you see, it's kind of rough around the edges. But it worked really well for the story because, well, the dogs are rough around the edges. They're dogs, and then
it's really impressive how some dogs had fleas on them, like how they were able to do all that stuff, and how they get the fleas to move. Because they put that one, they move that one at a time.
That's how stop motion works. They do an action, basically take a shot, then change it, take the next shot. It's a painstaking process.
And the fact that they're able to create it, it's really awesome. Now, what did you think of the part when they actually found, when Atari actually found his dog at this point? Because
I liked that because it was nice to have that payoff. But one of my issues with that scene was you see Spot.
Yeah, one of those. I think it's Spot.
I think it's Spot. But you see him see his dog, and you have that emotional connection, and then it goes into a flashback again.
Yeah,
and it was like, I don't know. Let me have the moment.
True, it would have been best just to let it play out for what it was.
I mean, a lot of movies do that. I really enjoyed this film. I did. It's just I would have enjoyed it a lot more with a simpler story. That's why I keep comparing it to Fantastic Mr. Fox. Like, the animation is better than this and then Fantastic Mr. Fox. But Fantastic Mr. Fox had that personal story. I would have enjoyed this film more had it just had the personal story.
I also enjoyed the lines where Atari gave the speech. The girl actually led a protest movement, didn't she?
No, well, she definitely led a protest movement to bring the dogs back.
Yeah, and she actually broke into one of the ceremonies. And what was odd was that the president was really he stepped aside and did let them speak.
Well, I did like that because I think they actually did a decent job with the mayor character as the villain, so to speak.
Yeah,
because he still seemed honorable. He still seemed like he always let his opponent speak. He still tried to hold fair elections, even though he was completely manipulating everything.
He was, but at the same time, the public opinion was really. I mean, he did let that happen because it was good for PR. It was good for the public's image. But it also goes back to the idea of the Japanese culture. You find that the culture is really deep rooted in honoring one another, honoring government, honoring king or emperor. Honoring, back, but I think it's during World War II, and honoring nation and neighbor. So you had that entire system of honoring, and I thought this movie did a very good job of relaying that.
I did too. I would have liked to have seen more of his motive because he was kind of.
Well, he's a cat person. That's really all in the world you need in a movie like this.
I guess you're right.
Have you seen a cat? Do you know cats?
I guess you're right, because when I think about cats, I think any of them would be capable of this. Even the two cats we have living with us.
Yeah, well they want it anyway. It's like they want the world for themselves, and it's like, okay, we're gonna do what we're gonna do. I mean, cats. I mean, I have a cat that every time we try to call it, he always looks at it like, what? What do you want me to do? I'm not a dog. I'm gonna stay here.
And even, I know we've talked a lot about the plot, but I'm sorry to say it, there's even more plot elements.
There are more plot elements. I mean,
there's going to be some we probably don't even talk about, but because there's also the whole bit with the robot dogs.
Yeah, so I like that scene where they build the robot dogs to replace the real dogs, and we've seen this with robot toy dogs. So the minute that scene came in, I'm like, I see where you're going with that film. It's like you got that idea from these toys over here. But I did like the scene where you see one of the dogs looked over the hill and saw a silhouette of a robot dog. And the dog goes and sniffs and says, I don't smell it. I don't know, what that dog's not real. Something's wrong. I don't smell it. And I liked how that was what they chose to go with, because a robot dog doesn't give out that scent. And it goes into how dogs identify the surroundings.
Which doesn't make any sense to me on a surface level, though.
Okay.
Because a robot dog has to have gears, has to have a motor, which means it would have to be lubricated. It means there has to be some kind of lubricant.
Well, I'm sure there's some kind of scent, but it's not a dog scent.
I know, it was just
that. But and it's a small nitpick. I get it. I understand. But it really goes back to, like I said, it goes back to the idea of how dogs identify if other dogs are around. It's like they have a very strong smell, and when they identify other dogs, they know they're in other dogs' territory. So when they smell a robot dog, it doesn't give out that dog smell. It gives out that robot smell, but a dog's not going to know that, are they?
I don't know. But these dogs did know a lot.
That's true. Oh, speaking of dogs knowing a lot, we didn't get to the two cool characters of this, which was the orca one, and another. What was the other one?
The pug. You're talking about the pug?
The pug one. Yes, the pug. When that orca came out, I was doing like this to you, like, Paul, that's your dog.
Yeah, because I do have a pug. I've posted pictures of her before on Twitter. Her name's Gloria. She's old and cranky and fantastic.
Fantastic. What was the other one? Jenny? Jenny was the other dog? It was like, I don't know what the other dog was. It was like a big, tall, black dog that had one black eye.
I can't remember.
But that dog was really good because that dog was the prologue explainer. It was kind of like this, the story. Narrator. Yeah, the storybook teller. And I really did. But the pug, I love that one line where she's like, it's going to rain tomorrow. How did she know? Well, she saw on TV. It was funny.
I liked that as well. What did you think of the ending to the film?
I did like the ending. I liked how you had the scientist ask the question, what happened to a man's best friend? And then Arturi echoed that, like, whatever happened to man's best friend? Because it's on the crowd. Because of the dog flu, you have a lot of crowd that had anti-dog banners and stuff on, and the thing I find interesting about this entire movie, and they did a very good job of making a social commentating on how easy it is to convey the population, or not convey, but convince a population to go down Pacific Road with all this mass propaganda and mass, just appealing to emotions. And if you just do that, you're going to win a lot of elections. It seems like what the movie's saying. And this is what happened back in World War II. You saw a lot of American propaganda, pro-war propaganda about if we're conserving resources. So if you're driving by yourself, you're driving with Hitler type of propaganda. And you had Germany had propaganda that helped them and continue. And it really does show how important it is to not let that type of thing permeate in elections and be the only voice out there.
No, you're definitely right about that. I enjoyed the ending too. Mm-hmm. There was some elements of it, like there was a love story element that I wasn't a fan of.
What love story? Which one? Which love story are we talking about? We're talking about like with the Arturi and the
Greta Gerwig,
the fuzzy Hugo, because that belly was there,
and then also with Nutmeg and Chief.
Nah, it was belly though too.
I know, but if it was barely there, so why even have it?
I know. It's like that's really one of those things. That's like when I recently saw Pacific Rim, the first film, to get ready for the second film. And the thing I like about Pacific Rim was you had these two characters, the main character and another character who was a man and a girl. And they were what's known as drift compatible. So in the movie, in order to operate the giant robot, you have to be drift compatible, which is syncing up with your minds. And that means you share memories. So here they are sharing their memories with one another. And at the end of the film, they got so well connected. There was a lot of chemistry between them, but they didn't kiss at the end of the film. They just hugged, and you could see that they were friends. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I really appreciate that film for doing that when it comes to the relationship. And so it goes back to the idea of, if it doesn't feel right, and if it's not that strong, it goes back to why you even need it in the first place. It's not needed if you're not doing a good job developing it, or if it's not all the way there. Maybe it's a good idea in some cases just to drop it and just continue on in this form of friendship or form of something else.
But I still enjoyed the ending because at the ending, Kobayashi has kind of realized the error of his ways. But, the conspiracy has gotten bigger than he is. Mm. So, in trying to stop it, Atari gets poisoned. Yeah. And then at the end, the movie kind of ends with Kobayashi, it's his distant uncle, giving Atari his kidney.
Yes.
Which I thought was a nice moment because it was like the fact that the family kind of transcends being on opposite sides.
Yeah, it also just goes back to show how honorable he was. He wasn't a malice, cruel man. He was doing what he believed was right, but when he realized it was wrong, he did what he could to remedy the situation. Even if he knew he was like, okay, I know I'm going to jail, but I'm not gonna. It's like the end of Spider-Man 2, when Doc Octopus said, "I'm not gonna die a monster." It's kind of the same thing as like I'm not going to be a monster for the rest of my life. I'm gonna help my nephew. So
that's an interesting comparison.
It is an interesting comparison, but if one movie, even if it's a Superman movie, has a good moment in it and a good line, dang it, I'm going to use it to make a comparison.
I did like the mayor character as well. What did you think of all the other characters?
Oh, I enjoy Messiah's character. There's one moment where I realized the movie where he had this group of dogs. They were in this conveyor belt, this bucket, and they suddenly got separated, and suddenly they went into this inferno machine that didn't exactly work. And we were like, well, why did this movie do this? I don't understand. And then I realized after that, those characters never came back and said a dialogue in the film.
No.
No, they didn't. And so it was the movie basically saying, okay, we don't need these characters anymore, so we're going to put them in a situation where, okay, we're done, let's just focus on these characters over here, and suddenly we'll go back to them as needed, but after that, it's like...
Well, it was the movie saying that, hey, we're finished with these characters, they're still going to exist, they still had a few tertiary lines, but they weren't the focus anymore.
Yeah, well, they're no longer needed.
Yeah.
So, but what did you think of the comedy?
I kind of always enjoy the comedy in his films, because it's funny, but it's not centered around jokes a lot of the times. It's like situationally funny.
Yeah, I like situational humor as well. I just like pointing out the absurdity in some things.
Because, like, for example, early in the scene, there's a scene where a Chief's crew and another crew are fighting over a fresh bag of trash.
Yes.
And one of the dogs is like, stop, wait a second, we need to see what's in it, see if it's even worth fighting over. And then they list everything, and it's like, yep, it's worth fighting over.
They start fighting, yes, that's funny. I also enjoy the moment where the guy, and this is in the trailer, one of the dogs lined up all of the objectives, and it was like all this dangerous stuff, like go over the cliff, go through the radiation, and, poison field stuff, and that will be our destination, and I love it. But there's also a running joke where all the entire group start voting on stuff. That was a good running joke.
Well, there's also the running joke with Jeff Goldblum in that, hey, I've heard a rumor.
That's true too. Everything is like, well, where did you learn all this stuff? I don't know. I just listen. I'm going to go listen. I listen to stuff. It's like Jeff Goldblum would listen to people.
Yeah, it just seems like a very Jeff Goldblum thing to say.
It would be say, and he seems like he's so knowledgeable about so many things. So it's like, yeah, he would definitely be that type of guy who would hear rumors and talk about it.
And just frankly, again, I can't talk enough about the animation in this film.
Yeah,
like just think about it. Like for a lot of stop motion animation. Like Kubo, which we've already talked about, they can 3D print different faces, and kind of change out the face for each take, kind of change out different facial expressions. Whereas they can't really do that for the dogs because you have the fur that would cover at the mouth.
Yeah,
it would be a lot more difficult, a lot more
time consuming
to do that. So the way they do it for the dogs is they actually like get little pins, and they open like the dog's mouths for each frame to simulate talking and things like that.
Oh, wow.
And there were over 1,100, I think I read, little miniatures created for this project.
Dang, how do you keep track of all that stuff? It's like the manpower.
It was just the manpower, the amount of time. I do wonder the amount of man hours that went into this film.
Oh man, well the craftsmanship. You could see it just oozing out every single scene.
I wish we had more stop motion animation films because I just want to see them all.
Yeah, it's funny. I had an interesting thought. You had the who was it? The Nightmare Before Christmas was directed by Tim Burton, and I thought to myself, when in the '90s, it seems like he was the one who I don't want to say brought back stop motion, but he did a lot of his movies were like, well, that movie right there was a staple back in the 90s. And it seems like now Wes Anderson is making these movies. Well, Tim Burton was the one that was doing it.
Well, we have Wes Anderson doing it. You have Leica. But frankly, stop motion animation's been around since the beginning.
Well, absolutely.
Like, think about Jason and the Argonauts. Think about a lot of old film. That was kind of how they originally did some of the original films. And that's kind of what I love about it. It feels like traditional classic cinema updated for the modern age.
Yeah, a lot of people maybe dishing computer-generated films like Pixar, but that also requires art too. No, it is a different form.
No, it does, and it's a drastically different form. But what I've always loved about stop motion animation is how accessible it is.
Yeah,
because frankly, you could get out there tomorrow, and if you felt like it, you could start a stop motion animation project.
You could, yeah. It would take time.
I mean, it would take time and patience. Ungodly amount of patience.
But, but one way you could do it is you could actually get a Lego set and do it.
Yep.
Because the Lego company actually did release a movie, kind of a movie set when they were growing up, well, you have a camera and you had a movie set, and he basically taught you how to make Lego movies growing up. I'm like, that was a really cool idea at the time. If I had the money at the time, I would buy it, absolutely. But I thought it was cool at the time.
I still think things like that are cool. And that's another one of the things I love about stop-motion animation is how accessible it is. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I would love to see more stop-motion animation films. I understand why we can't, because frankly, they're time-consuming and expensive.
Yeah, but the ones we've gone so far, Coopy on the Two Strings, The Fantastic Mr. Fox, now The Isle of Dogs. I mean, I'm really, I really have enjoyed these films from a story standpoint, from an animation standpoint. Just the craftsmanship put into it, I really do enjoy. And the same thing with anime, too. I mean, a lot of the animes out there, Spirited Away we talked about, just had great storytelling. And I love films that are able to tell good stories. And another thing I like about this film was the music.
The music was great, just because it helped build tension in some of the more tense scenes. Like, even the scene you're talking about where the dogs go through the incinerator. Because when that happens, actually... It takes a second before the movie gets back, so you don't know if the movie just actually killed the dogs. Yeah, and there's the music even then fits. Everything fits together so well in this film.
I also like that music. I don't know what the name was, but the song that they used when playing when they were going on the journey, and I think one of the lines was "I'm lost" or something. I don't know exactly the film. I had to go and hunt it down, but I really did enjoy it. So. But wow, we really do enjoy this movie, don't we? And we talked about everything we could, man.
What? As I said at the beginning, there was never a chance of me not liking this film.
Yeah, me too. But it's a really good film. If you're a dog lover and you love Wes Anderson and you just you enjoy good stories and you love animation, I would definitely recommend this film for people.
Yeah, I mean, we did complain about it a bit, but all in all, I was still delighted and captivated by this film. Yeah. After we got out of the theater, we saw it together. Mm-hmm. We both said that was fantastic.
It was.
And these problems didn't reveal themselves until later. They weren't a distraction while watching it. So get out there and watch it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, yes, it has issues, but the issues are so small, and you have to go out there and hunt them down to find them. If if you find a movie that you have to hunt for the issues, and when you look at the issues, like, yes, but you know it doesn't detract from the overall entertainment, I think you have something good.
No, you definitely do. You're definitely right about that, and I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm. So, but of course, we're out of time, but tell the audience what's in store for them next week.
Next week, we're actually going to talk about another new film. I think it's actually going to be like the first horror film we've really talked about. No?
No, we didn't. We talked about Alien.
Yeah, you're right.
We did, so...
Yeah, never mind. But we're going to talk about the new horror film, A Quiet Place.
Yes. Shh. Quiet.
We can't be quiet, Jess, if we're recording a podcast.
No, that's true. We both saw the film, and we have our thoughts on this, don't we?
I have a lot of opinions on the film.
Yeah, that we always do. But not for today, that's for next week. But until then, I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
And you've been listening to the CNC Geekcast.